the meeting to order at 7:04 and do the roll call. Less people. All right, so the first item is review and approval of previous minutes, July 10th, 2025.
Make a motion to approve the previous meeting's minutes as presented.
Any second?
Second, and all in favor? Correspondence and,
Are you good with it?
Okay.
Minutes?
Yep.
Okay.
correspondence and public comment. Do we have any?
I don't have any correspondence for you guys.
Excellent. Okay, moving on to old business 5A, Marina Park Boat Ramp Status Report.
So when we last spoke, the dock was being repaired. That's been done, the floats were changed. The contract for the handrail going up the path was awarded. I checked at the end of last week, it was 60% complete. So they anticipate that will be down and installed probably by the end of the month. And then now after Labor Day, Gooseberry Dock Building plans to coordinate with the diver and come back and take the pile of stone out of the water at the end of the ramp. And then that should be complete.
Any questions or discussion on the boat ramp? All right, moving on to 5B, Harbor Management Plan Update.
After going back and forth with DEM, we've talked about that. Previously, the town decided to submit the plan for its water quality certification to DEM as it is, with some minor modifications that were made that DEM asked for. And they can either approve and issue the water quality certificate or deny, and we'll respond if there's something that doesn't meet the regulations for the water quality certificate. Things outside of the water quality certificate, the town has determined we're not going to go back and forth with the DEM on, because that's outside their purview. We've been in contact with the solicitor's office, and that's where we're going to leave it. So stand by.
And there's no like burning need to have an updated harbor management plan. It's out of date and we've done all we did, so that's it.
We've submitted it. It's in the review process with CRMC and DEM, so that it is what it is right now. Yeah, we just kind of hang out and wait for them to do what they do.
And is this the item, there was that nice guy who had that GIS viewer a couple months ago?
That's Jay Parker.
Yep, and we left it sort of like, that's cool, and then we left. What does the town need, what do they need from us? We were gonna, is this the item to talk about, like, how do we get them a list of attributes to add, or like, do the A list?
Sure, so we can add that as an old business item if you want, going forward.
It's kind of why I asked is like, maybe we wait until the new plan gets approved and then this thing can go with it. When they say, here's the new plan, it's got a viewer.
Yeah, so I think what Jay was looking, he could do as much or as little as you wanted, but I think he wanted some clarification on what should be displayed, because we don't want to send people running down to places that are either dangerous or inaccessible or need further clarification, and what type of attributes you want it to be in each item. Is there parking? The condition of the path, type of activities that can occur there, whatever. That, I think he was just kind of saying, here's what I can do. You tell me what you think is reasonable, assemble a list, give that information to him. As time permits, he'll update what he's done to date for you guys to review, and it can kind of be like a back and forth. So I don't think that there's a time frame necessarily on it. I think it's more what everybody's willing to put in for the effort and for him as time allows.
But wouldn't that constitute, isn't that basically the same thing that the town council requested of us to do, was to basically put the public access points online available? So
Yeah.
I get that there's no time frame, but since we did present to the town council, and I think it was Councilwoman Bergner was like, you should have that.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that, at least put it on new business and we can start chip away at it this point.
Okay. Yeah, we can definitely, it's really how you guys wanna handle it. I know you have a lot on your plate, but you are correct, that, yeah, that is something they like to see. I think it's a noble effort, it's just,
Yeah,
it's one more thing that you gotta,
bandwidth and capacity.
right, you gotta plod through to
So
get going.
I collected a lot of that appendix with all those locations. I'd be willing to take a shot at like a document that says, you know, just display the A-list, link to the main report, and these 3 attributes are, I can throw a sketch at the next meeting, like a document I can send you,
Yep.
and then we can say, okay, yeah, that's good, but we'll add one more thing or subtract that
Yep.
as like an item on the agenda. I don't know, I would like to avoid a work session on this. This seems like something we could do quick.
Yeah, and I think, Jay's more than happy to come back and meet with you guys, if it makes sense to kinda sit back down with him and hash it out a little bit more. I know that was kinda like a quick, like, here's what I did, take a look.
Yeah.
Also by then, the new GIS, planner should be on board, and I don't know how that changes the office and the workload and things like that. So they have some moving pieces over there, but, you know, I'm sure Jay, you know, if it fits into his schedule, he's happy to come back and talk with you guys too, if that makes sense as well. But I'll certainly add, going forward as an agenda item.
It can be a sub to this one, basically, probably, right?
Well, because eventually if that gets approved, this may not be done, so it probably makes sense to leave it separate. And it's a newer item, this
Yeah.
harbor management plan's been on there for a while. It's not necessary for the harbor management plan. So yeah.
Cool. Any other thoughts on that one? Harbor management plan update? All right. 5C, rights of way at Lake and Washington Ave in Tunic.
So we have the approved fee structure that you folks recommended at the last meeting, 25 resident, 35 non-resident. I immediately met with the software company that does the moorings for us to have them set up, so we can get the wait list going and the properties identified. I don't know what the issue is, but that was it was conveyed and understood that we wanted that as soon as possible to get people in during this season. That's what the town council wanted, that's what you folks wanted. And I've run into some roadblocks with their performance in providing that in a timely manner, which is frustrating because I have the stickers ready to issue. So that's a little bit of the holdup there. We did meet on a staff level, and I've been in multiple conversations with CRMC on the best way to proceed in getting everything permitted and the plans done. So we've been down there with Public Services to look at, because CRMC wants stormwater mitigation as part of this. So we looked at that, as well as the knotweed mitigation with the Parks Department. That permit to get that, because we want to get that treated with herbicide now. We have probably another 3 weeks that's the best time to hit it in the fall, to cut it and hit it so it goes into the root, so that we can try and knock the knotweed down. So we have that ongoing. Now that school's back in session, I did speak a couple weeks ago with the teacher from the carpentry CTE program. They're very enthusiastic to do this project, so I'm going to give them like a week to kind of get settled in, and then I'm going to ping him again, try and get him back on site so we can get the plans for the racks there, know how many racks we're going to have.
Yeah.
So everything's moving. It's not moving, you know, we wanted to get the sticker slapped on the boat, a list of people down there, but I don't have the database set up to take the payments and that's the missing piece. I'm confident it'll show up, I just don't understand where things went south in the month since we had the approval from the council. So, but that's where we are with all of that.
And practically speaking, that'll mean it'll engage next summer.
Yes, which makes more sense. The premature installation of the signs kind of accelerated the timeline on it, but right, that makes more logical sense. And I think overall people continued and were able to do whatever they needed to do this summer.
Yeah.
So just a little bumpy.
Any people ask, what about other roads, which everybody anticipated would
Mhm.
come,
Yeah.
but no official, like, I think I mentioned, I think, send it, ask the town, ask the Harbor Management Commission, what are you thinking? So I think that is bubbling up, and it might bubble up more when the limit becomes a limit, and then people are like, well, I want one too. Yeah, so I imagine going into next summer, there might be asks for either a system in different places, but at least we sort of know how this goes, so.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on that one before we move on? Okay, 5D, boats and waterway ordinance revision / updates.
You looking at me?
Oh, no, I'm happy to talk about it. I know that you and Sam had put together some stuff.
Yeah, so in your packet, so part of what we need to do, we touched on this briefly at the last meeting, but with there's soon to be transient moorings in the pond off the new ramp or redone ramp. There's no ordinances on the books about transient moorings, so we need to put together some recommendations for those ordinances. And it's the same thing with the dinghy dock there as well too, the tender dock. Just to probably put some ordinances or some protocols in place for, how long people can tie up there for, and things like that, size limits, considerations. I pulled together just a quick, it's in the packet somewhere, just kind of what's on the books now that touch on those. But at some point, and again, I don't know if this necessarily needs to be a full work session, or if we can do it through a meeting itself. But that's where we stand on things. And Mike, I don't know if you know like a timeline on, when those moorings will be in or anything like that.
I think the installation is pretty easy.
Yeah.
We did get approval in the operating budget for funds to be able to phase them in. So it's just a matter of having an ordinance in place so that it can be managed and enforced and approved, obviously. Another thing that I just want to add to your radar is over the summer in Potter Pond, I had a less than pleasant interaction with a resident on the pond who chased me down in his boat to tell me that I was violating a no-wake zone. And I informed him that there was no no-wake zones in Potter Pond, which infuriated him more. And tried to talk to him after he calmed down. It didn't go any better. The whole family got involved, including adult children, demanding an apology. So I'm not going to apologize, I didn't do anything wrong, and the next time I go by here, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm sorry that you feel this way, but you don't get to control in front of your dock. It's no different than the rest of the docks throughout the pond and other waterways. Which prompted me to look into what the recourse the town has to remove signs which are posted throughout that area that say it's a no-wake zone, and they look very similar to regulatory signs that a government entity would set up. And it's not covered in zoning, and it's not covered in the boats and waterways ordinance. And so it would be almost become like a kind of like a messy civil attorney kind of thing. So the solicitor's recommendation was that the ordinance be amended to allow enforcement of signs that are posted that are not proper signs. And then that would allow, then us to compel those signs to be removed, and enforcement action to be taken if they're not removed. And I have to imagine if that's the way I'm being treated while I'm working in a marked harbor master boat, I can only imagine how the general public is being treated. Because, and also there were some things with some shellfishermen over there. It goes deeper than that. But point being, the solicitor's office said this is something that you should look to develop an ordinance. So just to put that on your radar as well. I think it's probably pretty simple, but as we're going through the exercise of updating the ordinance, we have some other things that we had talked about previous that need to be updated, and then, you know, we can add that as well.
It has parallels to like false no parking signs on roads.
Right, which the town can regulate that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, the difference is that
it's on the dock.
it's outside of because it's not on land.
Yeah.
And it's on private property, cause, you know, you have the whole free speech thing, right? Like, you can
Yeah.
put things up, but where's the line where you're telling people that they can't do something when legally they can? You know, be like if the speed limit's 25 and you put up a speed limit sign that says 15, right? Like, so.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of timeline, it would be nice to, you know, at least try to get this done before the springtime.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
like, so whether it is a standalone work session where we hammer out those recommendations, or we add it as a, you know, a working session during a meeting, doesn't matter to me, but.
I guess it probably depends on what your agenda is, right? Like, if the agenda's light and it's just old business,
Yeah.
you could pick one item and say, okay, we're gonna work till 8 or 8:30 or whatever, and just have like a hard stop and work on it. There's no way to predict that, right? Going into things that, you know, going into each month,
Yeah.
we don't always know what the agenda's gonna look
Right.
like, so. So that's entirely up to you guys, you know, kind of reset now that we're back in the fall, for you guys to decide. Also, you don't meet in, December, if you remember. So that might also be an opportunity as well, if you don't wanna add multiple meetings in a month or whatever.
And it's editing those ordinance language, the same thing we just did for the dinghy rats.
I think you can probably
Put it all together.
beg, borrow, and steal new stuff from other municipalities, because I don't think anything we're proposing, except for maybe the sign thing, is something that somebody else already hasn't gone through the exercise, right? So I think you could probably get that pretty easily.
What do we do about January too? Because January, the first Thursday is the first.
So in those cases, we'll go the following week.
Okay.
Yeah, like we had that with the 4th, I think,
Yeah,
last year.
So just, it moves to
Yeah.
the following.
And also, it seemed actually that it wasn't such a big deal, which I thought in the past it was, to move that July meeting to the week after. So
Yeah.
we might just be able to do that
Okay.
going forward. Same thing with January, right? Like if bumping up against those holidays. That's up to you guys.
Any more discussion on the ordinance revisions? I think, yeah, tackling one of those changes in each of the meetings or something like that, and then have it be one document at the end, then we go, okay, here's the changes we want. If we did like one of those issues as like, we push it to the last item on the agenda, try that.
That sounds good.
I don't know how to solve the Potter Pond fake no lake booted signs, that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, we can, I'm sure the solicitor's office will work on the language, but it's ultimately, it's gonna have to be an ordinance change or an ordinance update. That should come from you guys.
What would the process be for them to petition to get
No wake zone.
a
It would come to you folks
and request?
and request it, you would have to vote it, and then it would have to, the ordinance would have to be amended.
And what
Would
part
it-
of the pond is? in
The entrance to Cedar Cove and Seaweed Cove,
Oh, okay, yeah.
not a congested area.
Yeah.
An area where plenty of people go fast. You know, and the thing with like entering into Seaweed Cove is it's very shallow. So if you are not on plane, you are staying not on plane the whole way in. You gotta kind of be a little bit closer to the docks on the Prospect Road side, because if you go the other way, it gets real shallow going out towards Ocean Ave. That sandbar there, and then the Cedar Cove side is where everybody water skis, tubes, wakeboards. So.
So there's specific ordinances for each no wake zone?
Correct.
Under the town's
Yeah.
purview?
Correct. Yep.
And to my knowledge, SK has no like placards, right? It's all buoys.
Correct. Although I did on
Because
Point
you
Judith
see,
Pond.
you see signs
Yes.
all the time.
There, people you buy a no wake sign,
Yeah.
they sell them online and
Nail
they
it
slap
into
them
the
up.
pile, yeah.
So what I've done with in the upper Point Judith Pond, I put up some no wake signs. When you leave the boat ramp, there's one on one of Ram Point's pilings. When you leave Silver Spring in the river, there's one on one of their pilings. They say no wake to none 26 per town ordinance, and the town ordinance is listed. And then I've utilized these same stickers that the highway department uses on road signs, where they punch like the date when it's installed and that it's an official sign authorized by the town council. And those orange stickers are on the back side of those signs. So the ordinance is cited and it has the sticker, so you're able to see that it's an official sign. But yeah, you're right, they're scattered throughout, all sorts of areas. And in the places where they're in a no wake zone, like for instance in the Narrows, and then years ago we had some state signs that we gave out to people who lived in these no wake zones to put on their docks. So those are fine, but I'm not overly concerned for people that reinforce it in legitimate no wake zones. But there's certainly areas that people would like to not have a no wake zone. But at what point, if you make Seaweed Cove and Secret Cove a no wake zone, then the next thing is the people up in the upper part of Potter Pond say, well, I don't want the wakes on my dock, so now you have a giant no wake zone in Potter Pond. There has to be some safety or logistical reason. They went through that exercise in the lower Point Judith Pond along Jerry Brown years ago, where it was because of the shoaling and the restriction of the channel that it became unsafe for boats to be operating at speed going by each other. And you're in a federal navigation channel. The upper pond where the marinas are also made mooring fields. There's not really any area to move around up there. So those all kind of have like reasons. But yeah, in theory, they could come in here, petition you folks, you could recommend it, the council could pass it, and those could become no wake zones. And that would apply anywhere.
Does it work the other way?
Yeah, I guess you could get it revoked.
Just curious.
Right? You could get an ordinance overturned.
Well,
Something
but you're
removed.
saying they were reviewed and for safety reasons they were enacted. So
Yeah.
you'd have to prove that it's now safe or.
And that would be the prudent thing to do, but I guess you could, in theory,
Yeah.
revoke it if you had the votes and you could make the case and the council is willing to approve it. Then that's the process, right?
Yeah.
So,
All right, we will address that when we think about changing ordinances in the waterways. So old business number E, the Charlestown Beach Road Monument and Survey Project.
yeah, so I brought those documents that I worked with the tax assessor and the GIS department. And if you want to take a look at those, the old plat maps were translated to the new plat maps. One of the cool things is I think we've uncovered the 3 CRMC right-of-ways that kind of seemed to be lost, that nobody knew how to identify. So those are in there, and there's been some clarification on some lots that the ownership was unclear. So I think we have everything that we need to put this out to bid. I just wanted to make sure that we left no stone unturned, and we went at this once. I didn't want to have to go back through this exercise again, or somebody to come in and say, you did this wrong, or you missed something, or whatever. I think we've done as much due diligence as we can. I think it's ready to go, so,
Yeah.
if you guys concur, I'll get that prepared and get that out. We have now, I think, 2 years of capital funding, so I'm hopeful that that's enough to cover it. And we won't know until we get the quotes back, but I feel a little more comfortable having that extra cushion that we can do the whole project at once. And what I'd like to do, if funding permits, is we'll go all the way down to the DEM property on Charlestown Beach Road, and everything will be surveyed and monumented. And I'd also like to just, if I can, take all of Green Hill at once. So we have those other
Because you're the next
couple of spots on the other side, at the end of Green Hill Beach Road, and the end of the other street to the east. The name is escaping me. That's off of Browning. Anyway, and then we would have like that district, so to speak, done. And then my thought is, unless you folks think differently, then we'll do the coast first. So then we would go and try and tackle Matunic and get all of Matunic done. And then from there, tackle all of Point Judith, and from there, tackle all the river. But certainly subject to, if something else is more important or rises to, a higher level, we can pivot as needed. But that was it's just gonna kind of methodically, as money allows, just keep going through, unless you folks have one that you think is a higher priority, we'll certainly go after that one.
And it's the roads.
In
and
this case, yes,
It's roads and lots that the town owns.
that the town owns or rights of way,
Yeah. So
that
they
are,
they're not gonna survey like the DEM property at the end, but they'll survey the
No.
edge that we run up into.
but I think they will survey the road
Yeah.
where it ends at the DEM property, which can then be, marked as town property ends here, state property begins, or something along those, right? Like, it can be made clear to the public, you know, that's the whole point of this, specifically this Charlestown Beach Road exercise, is that there's no ambiguity when you go down there. You take a look and you clearly can tell what is public and what is private, right? That, in my mind, that's what I've received from you folks and from the general public, is you want to be able to clearly go down there and exercise your rights on public property and know where that is.
And then what comes back from these? It's like from the survey you'll get, like what's the deliverable that comes back? It's,
So we'll get a survey, we'll have meets and bounds, that will be, marked, like we'll have coordinates, right? So if there's a storm, we'll be able to find it, we'll have fixed survey points that can be found with, equipment, right, if they need to uncover it. So at minimum, those would be the deliverables, right? We would have a document that shows everything and an ability to locate those. If a hurricane comes through and fundamentally changes the area, the road can be relocated and the rights of way can be relocated. And that's one of the issues, is that public service says, we don't know where the road is. So we can't make any further moves until we know where the road is, because the road as it exists now might not actually be in the right of way. So that will clear that mess up. And then, you know, we'll mark the other locations that are public property or rights of way. And then, you know, if any of them you folks want to develop, that will be a different thing. But in my mind, a paper document, physical survey points that can be found, and visual aids that you don't need a survey document and GPS or survey equipment to find out where you can and can't be, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. If there's anything else, or if I'm off base, you know, feel free to let me know.
That seems what's needed. That road, the folks that live at, or have houses at the end were kind of offered, hey, why don't you get together and move that road when it was destroyed after Sandy, I think, and Irene. And they decided, no, we're not gonna do that, we'll let the town fix the road where it exists. But obviously, that, you know, we did an emergency fix last winter.
Yep.
So I mean, eventually that road's gonna get abandoned at some level by this ocean or otherwise.
Well,
So
we have
it's good-
designated rights of way
Yeah,
down
so
there.
it's good timing to do it now, before it's like that emergency situation where that gets deleted, or,
Right.
so it's a great time to do it.
Yeah, so I'm optimistic that we'll have the funding to do that project, and then we'll continue to request funding, going forward, to continue this exercise for all, until everything is surveyed and monumented for the rights of way, and also that you're able to do, title search work, right, for some of the ones that need further clarification. You know, that's my hope and my goal, if they continue to fund it, is that you'll have this fund that you'll be able to go to draw on these areas that need to, to be worked on.
Cool. Any more discussion on that one?
Thanks for the update.
5F, expansion of parking at Marina Park West.
Yeah, so we had talked, I think, in July, and there was discussion about, could the fence just be removed because there was a staffing problem. We didn't have, Parks and Rec didn't have really even enough staff to cut the grass at the beginning of the summer. They had a lot of turnover, so they were struggling just to maintain what they needed to do. There was discussion, and ultimately it was determined that they didn't feel comfortable just removing the fence and leaving the path in existence. So now that we're in the off season, we've already had a tree company down there to look at some of the trees that might need to be either removed or pruned or whatever to make this happen. Circle back around with Parks and Rec. we're on track, hopefully in this off season, to get that area, cleaned out and moved further to the highway, to expand the parking lot. If you were down there at all this summer, it was an absolute disaster. The restaurant and the marina and the other park people, have completely monopolized the entire lot. And if you're there with a boat, the truck and a trailer, or a car and a trailer at the beginning of the day, and you don't come back till the end of the day, good luck getting out. It was just complete chaos. Even though we painted lines in the morning with the trucks and trailers, it was perfect. Everybody parked where they're supposed to, no issues. The problem becomes when you run out of the parking spaces. Nobody's utilizing the lot down the road across from Job of Madness and Stone Cove. They're all trying to pack into that lot. And there's a perception that I think that it's the restaurant's lot. And so we'll work to try and figure out ways to define the areas, the trailer parking and the not trailer parking, which will require an ordinance for enforcement purposes from the police department, because we'll have to say, if you park in this area that's for trailer parking only, you're in violation, they can write you a ticket or tow you.
Is there some roads committee that's gonna work on that
I
ordinance?
don't, I think we can just get that with the police department. It's pretty easy. I'll work with the police chief on that. And then, but we need to define that first. And then, we did get that end of year transfer from the town council. I think it was, don't quote me on this, but $22,000, maybe something like that, to do improvements down there for the parking. So, that's helpful. But ultimately, as you all know, we need that master plan, because I think that the parking lot arrangement needs to be rearranged. I think that the only way we're really gonna solve the problem is if you have separate entrances for regular parking and boat trailer parking, because with that overlap and the ability to weave in and out of the different areas, they're just ultimately gonna park wherever they can stick their car. I mean, the other night, there was a SUV at the end of the pavement before you go into the rock up against the fence. There was not enough room to get a car in between. Somebody parked in the hashed mark for the handicap parking space, for the trailer handicap parking space, and then cars all the way down. So you couldn't even go in there if you wanted to.
And you got the camper abandoned on the.
Yeah. Luckily, that's on DOT property. You can't even tow it out of there because there's no wheels on it.
Has anyone tried working with the restaurant on where their patrons are parking?
We've had like conversations, not like serious conversations. I mean, they did the valet a few years ago, which was a disaster. That made it worse. The problem is it's a shared public parking area, right? And so they're entitled to it, the marina's entitled to it, the park patrons are entitled to it, the yacht club's entitled to it, the coffee shop people are entitled to it, URI Sailing's entitled to it, right? So it's great that the restaurant is very successful, but I don't think that anyone went through the exercise of the ordinance, which says very specifically for marinas and restaurants, how many parking spaces you need per seating area and per slip, right? And so we're a victim of our own success now. The restaurant has been allowed to expand multiple times in their seating area, which is great, and they're filling it. But we have a very finite space, and short of reordering the road and parking, I don't think we get out of that. I think and it's a seasonal thing, right? In another couple months, nobody thinks about it.
And it'd be nice to keep the parking for the boats and trailers and stuff, but then also if that's light in the evening, it'd be nice to be able to utilize it.
Right,
Not
you would
just
have to
sitting
have
empty,
an on-site
Right.
person to
Totally.
manage that, right?
That's what I'm
And who's
saying.
gonna do that? Is the restaurant gonna hire somebody? Is the town gonna hire somebody? Clearly, the restaurant hires somebody, they're gonna have one purpose, right? Is to pack the cars in to fill the seats.
Is that, parking on the off-ramp, is that legal?
I don't think it is, because that's the DOT right of way for the highway.
Yeah.
I think we all just turn the other way. That is mostly, employees.
Yeah,
So the town has not gone and said, what are you doing here? Because it helps alleviate the problem, but I think if someone were to look at what the DOT regulations are on a state highway, I don't think you can park in the shoulder. I think there's probably a designated space between the highway, the off-ramp, and where you're allowed to do things. And I don't know what that is, but I would anticipate that's probably the case.
And parking would be rearranging parking would be the type of thing that has to go into this master plan, would be one of the largest components.
I think you need certainly a mind greater than mine that's an engineer to be able to lay things out. You know, and my simple look at it is like, if you could put angle parking on the street, that would probably, for every parallel parked car, you get 2 or 3 cars if they were angle parked instead of parallel parked, right? So that would add capacity. I don't know if you shifted and had, say, the east side was all cars and the west side was all trailers, and they just kind of came in and they all kind of faced each other, and you had maybe 2 rows. Maybe that changes the way things work, you know, and maybe a shared exit lane or something. I don't know, but that's all you gotta have, an engineering done, right? And then if you reorient that, you've lost, now only a small section is paved, you have even less paved parking spaces. That's difficult for people with mobility issues.
But somewhere in this, I don't know if it's this agenda or the last one, it's an ask to the town for the money to do the plan for that, right?
Yes.
In the next budget.
In this, we will make the request, it's already been forecast, in previous capital requests, that in this upcoming fiscal year, starting July 1, 26, we would like money to begin funding a master plan. I've gone and, checked with an engineering firm.
So we've moved on to 5G, by the way. But go ahead, keep going.
Oh,
It's good, it's perfect.
Yeah, so, I've actually contacted a firm who's doing work for the town to see. It's a difficult thing to find a number, right? Because we can't put this out to bid because we don't have money. So nobody wants to bid on something that they're not gonna be awarded in. And I just posed a question to them. I said, hey, how do I get a number? I'm not gonna hold you to it. And there's no, you're not guaranteed a job out of it or anything like that, but is it 50,000? Is it 500,000? Is it $1 million? You know, I don't know what the number is. And they said they actually have in their program, because they're a full service, they have landscape architects, they have engineering, they have architect, all this stuff. They actually do like pro bono work, my word, I think, not theirs, but basically they'll throw a number at us. They'll look at the property, I've given them the list of issues, and they're gonna give us a realistic number that we can then go to the council, and the council will have to decide, do they fund it all at once? Do we fund it incrementally? Do we not fund it at all? But I wanna set the table to the best of our ability with all the facts to get this moving as quickly as we can, because we have so many converging issues down there, and so many things that nothing's gonna happen until we get that master plan in place. And so I think that's really the most important thing.
Does the master plan, can the master plan, you know, run through scenarios of the, I know one of the other agenda items on here is the Ram Point lease stuff. Would it cover that type of thing too, like how the town would
Yep.
want to use that, might have different scenarios or however that goes?
Yep, exactly. Additional opportunities for public access, additional transient slips, marinas, park area,
Yeah.
park amenities, parking, pedestrian safety, traffic flow. Does it make sense to have one lane and you exit on the highway side and wrap around? Like all those, you know, all that kind of flow stuff and engineering and utilities and plantings, what it will look like, lighting, all that stuff can be developed in a master plan.
Any discussion on that one? Right, moving on to new business. New business A, construct and maintain boating facility, Green Hill Civic Association.
So we don't have Carol to make your maps anymore, but Jay was kind enough to take a stab at that, which I've included on the back of your packet. I apologize I didn't email it to you, if that's helpful at all. And I also have our GIS up right here, so if that's helpful to you folks as well. This is the new GIS, by the way. If you haven't visited GIS and you're inclined to look at GIS stuff, this is the new software that Carol was able to secure with the town council prior to her departure. It's way faster, has more things, more information. When you click on each parcel, you can click through more things. So if you're inclined to those types of things, check it out. It's the new and improved. It's all cloud-based. So this is the parcel, this is Green Hill Pond you're looking at. Sorry, here's the Charlestown Breachway over here. Green Hill Pond, Green Hill Beach Road is right here. So they have like kayak racks and stuff on this property now. And you come off of, because their tennis courts are across the street. Oops, sorry. Hey, what am I doing? There we go. The water is relatively shallow over here. It's on the far eastern side. There are some moorings up this way.
Is that paper road to its south on our list?
I think it needs clarification. There's moorings up here, just so you're aware. This one right here.
Yeah.
There's a couple of these down there that I have on my list that need further like this one here.
Yeah,
There's another one that I need some clarification on, because that one runs like all the way down. So, to answer your question, I don't know.
Yeah. So there's no variance needed, right, on this one, or asked for, at least?
Yeah, requiring no variances, it says.
So I know I've asked this question a million times. We see them whether or not they require variances?
Mhm.
Okay.
You see every application that is proposed in the town of South Kingstown above a maintenance assent. Any
Kind of
new project.
like all the neighbors are getting notified, we get notified, right?
Yeah, we're just one of the interested parties that's notified. Yep. Town council members or anyone can be on the list. Like when they send these emails out and they see people on the list, there's like people on the East Bay that are on the list. I think anybody can subscribe to get notified.
Dock builders.
Yeah, that's a good lead, right?
Any discussion or motions on this item?
I did request an extension because it was August 30th, so we have until September 30th. That's included in the 30-day extension.
I'll make a motion. No objection to the plans as presented.
Second.
All right, all in favor on that one?
So,
Okay. New business 6B, Grove Point Marinas, Ram Point Marinas, riparian lease, docks along the green space north of Ram Point Marina lease area.
I apologize, I should have that up for you guys too. So, as most of you are probably aware, when Ram Point renegotiated their lease in 2021, they requested from the town, they said that they were having trouble securing financing was one of the reasons given for improvements. So historically, everybody down there had been given 15-year leases with an option to renew for 5 years. And they requested a 30-year lease, and they were working with with Rob Zernetsky, and there was some discussion about that. And one of the components that was discussed was the town road that runs through their property here was part of the discussion, because I think they wanted to include that in their lease. That was ultimately denied because it's a town road, but also the conversation also came up with the docks. Here's the end of Salt Pond Road. So this section of docks from the southern end of Salt Pond Road, where it ends, to the north, to Route 1 along the Saugatucket River. And the town, at the time, felt that should they give the 30-year lease for the main property, they didn't want to tie up this section, which is really adjacent to the park, the green space area for 30 years. And so ultimately, Ram Point was given a 5-year lease, and they defined this as the riparian lease, akin to it's the town's riparian rights, although the town owns everything down there, so it's all the town's riparian rights. But nevertheless, that was defined as the riparian lease. That's what it was referred to as. I think there's about 16 slips in this stretch here, and then there's about the same skiff slips, basically, where they just bring small dinghies and 13 whalers, and they tie bow in on one cleat, and they all kind of float back and forth into each other on this far northern end. There was at one time a paddle sport company that was subletting from Ram Point. They had their boats down the end here on racks, their kayaks and paddle boards. That doesn't seem to be in business any longer down there, and those racks have been removed. So then when the lease was transferred to Grove Point, the investment firm that purchased Ram Point shortly after the lease was renegotiated for 30 years, they immediately came to the town and tried to roll this section into their 30-year lease, and the town ultimately declined that, and then the lease is up June 30th of 2026, so next year. So they came back to the town looking to renegotiate that lease. That went to the town council in executive session, and ultimately the town council said, we're not going to renew that lease with Grove Point. We'd like to do something, we think, on our own, and also retain it for any future plans that might occur, knowing that there's, kind of the master plan thing going on, and the connectivity to Town Farm Park and downtown Wakefield, knowing that slip rates have been increasing year over year, and that private equity has become heavily involved in the marina business, and for a myriad of reasons, I guess, they declined to renew that lease. So this is going to come. It's going to be on the town manager's report on the Monday night meeting. Both to disclose to the public that the lease is not being renewed next year, and also to talk about more broadly the plans for Marina Park, and kind of, I think, to let people know what is going on down there, what could be going on down there, what you folks are talking about with the town council going on down there. So if you have recommendations on what you would like to see, this would be your opportunity to do that. There was discussion about just retaining the existing what is happening there, and just having the town lease those slips to town residents, have transient docks. All those things were talked about, and so that's kind of where we are. It's very shallow over there. On a low tide, there's 1.5 foot, a foot in some places, because all the outflow from the Saugatucket has been washed out there. Silver Spring has dredged over here. You can actually see it in this. I think if you folks remember, the ones that were on the commission, Ram Point actually came here and tried to make the case that they weren't going to do anything over there unless they had that for 30 years. And they ultimately did not dredge, but if you look here, most of their slips, and their big boat slips at that, these are all the larger boats, 35 to 50 or so feet. That it's most of the river. This is really just the tail end that we're talking about here. This lease, like I said, I think it's 15 slips or something like that, actual slips, and then the dinghy dock down the end. So this is on the agenda so that you folks are aware of that decision that was made, and your advisory capacity to the town council, you are certainly, able to make recommendations, if you'd like. And your charter, if you remember, is that, you advise on the town farm property, but that you don't negotiate leases. So you can provide suggestions on operations down there, but ultimately the town manager and the town council negotiate the actual lease itself.
Was the 5-year renewal was completely off the table?
It was an option that they could renew. They could have renewed for a year. They could have extended it for a year. They could have gone 5 years. They could have gone 15 years. They could have gone 20 years. They could have gone 30 years. I mean, there was nothing.
No, but you said, so did Grove Point have an opportunity to renew for 5 years, or was the town?
No.
The town say no, we're
The
not.
town
gonna
said,
pay
we're
you."
done leasing this section to you.
Yep.
We would like to explore alternative plans that don't involve Grove Point marinas.
I didn't know if they walked away because they didn't have the opportunity to do that.
There was no, to my knowledge, there was no back and forth. The town was approached requesting that the lease be renewed or renegotiated. The town manager and the town council deliberated and said, we're not gonna renew the lease with Grove Point.
This is tricky, cause like, I feel like we're right on the brink of developing a master plan, which this would.
Well, I think that that's part of the reason that decision
Right, no, I understand,
had
but
happened.
but to put recommendations,
Yeah.
it's kind of putting the cart before the horse, right? Like, I mean, I love the
Installing
idea.
no parking, or no boat signs at the right of way before you have a plan.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, obviously, those aren't town docks, right?
Right,
We
so
have
that's
to
the
build-
other component to this, is that potentially, I think, and the solicitor would have to weigh in, but I think those would be considered improvements, and therefore the property of Grove Point. The docks are not in great condition, and anecdotally, I asked what the plans would be for that, just out of curiosity, because as we start to plan for the future, and I was told they're gonna be removed. You know, that's not an official thing, but certainly the people, now they told me that all those spots are sold. But if you go down there in August, there were 2 whalers down on the dinghy slip thing, 2 13-foot whalers. And I will say, I think all the slips with the finger piers did have boats in them. So how many of those are resident? How many of those are non-resident? Those 15 or so boats don't have a slip in theory next year, unless people give up slips in the other areas of the marina, and they're able to move them to those slips. So that's unfortunate, and you can't. The lease is up June 30th, so Grove Point is not going to do anything for next year because they don't have the full year, I would imagine. And if the town were to do something, we don't take over until July 1, so the town can't do anything until after July 1, right? So next year's probably a dead year for anything to happen over there.
Not helping the slip
Free
problem.
parking.
Right, so right, so that's the, I guess, the unfortunate side of it, right? It opens up an opportunity for the master plan type stuff, but 15 people in theory or so, 15, 17 people have lost their home for next year potentially for their boat.
One obvious thing that's missing down there is like places to put a dinghy to get out to your town mooring. It's a tricky, you car top it, put it in at the nice paddle sports ramp is a good one, but one decent use of that would be to store dinghies for the mooring holders and other people that want to do it, sort of like our boat racks.
Right, so right now, you're at the mercy of the local marinas. So I will say, Ram Point has developed all of these
Yeah, they lease out.
as dinghy docks that they rent out. Now, those were a couple $100, $500. They're now well over $1,000, $1,200.
Right.
maybe
For-
1,500
for
for
your
a dinghy
dinghy?
For
dock.
your dinghy to get to your boat on the
Yeah.
water.
To get out to more.
The rates have gone up pretty significantly on those. Don't quote me on the number, but I think it's north of $1,000 now, for a dinghy slip.
It's also an awkward situation to like have a town compete with a business that you leased the land to and
Right.
undercut on prices. It's like,
Right.
without understanding people's agenda or a long-term plan for what to do with that, it's hard to give them advice. You know, it's like
You're
without-
saying the council's,
yeah,
right,
exactly.
so
Without knowing their intentions, it's hard for us to.
I
give
think
any
certainly
knowledgeable
they
advice.
probably have some ideas, but I also think that they historically have relied on you folks also to make recommendations. Or you can not, I'm not saying you need to make a recommendation, but I think,
Can we ask them to tell us what their plan is?
I think you're gonna hear some things probably on Monday night
Mm-hmm.
in the town council, regular meeting. It's on the town manager's
Yeah,
report,
yeah.
and Terry and I have been asked to talk about this component in Marina Park more broadly. Where that goes, they may just digest it, or they may have more conversation about it.
Yeah.
So can we like push that a month?
Yeah, it's just, initially, this was before it was asked to be, one of the town council members asked for it to be put on the town manager's report for an update and to bring this to the public, right? Because obviously, people are probably going to renew their slip and being told, I'm sorry, we can't renew your slip, we're losing the lease. So understandably, they're saying,
Why?
what's happening down there? So I think there's that, and I think it never came out of executive session, so it hasn't been disclosed to the public.
Yeah.
So that was initially, this was a way to get it out into the public. And then now, subsequent to that, we're also having it on the, town council agenda because one of the members asked for it to be on the town council agenda. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you need to say something tonight. This was more just to let you know what's going on.
Can we, I mean, I can't make a motion or anything like that, but one idea would be to tell or communicate to them. There's a lot of moving pieces there. As a committee, we want to restate our encouragement to do the master plan so that all these pieces fit together. That's like.
Yeah, I mean, anything that you would like me to bring to them on Monday night, I'm happy to do that. Or if you wanna sit on it, or you wanna wait until you see how that meeting goes and then come back around, you may receive further direction in that meeting, you know, I don't know how that'll go. It's not a specific agenda item, it's on the town manager report as an update kind of thing.
Right. Which could be as much as, oh, we didn't renew the lease, next item.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna talk, my goal is to talk more broadly about the need for the master plan, the parking issues, you know, all of those things, because the way it looks like it's gonna be on the agenda is it's not just this lease, but Marina Park, and it's this lease and Marina Park. And I think the way I'm reading between the lines is, why did we do this? This happened, also, what else is
How's it
happening
fit
down
in
there,
here, yeah.
right?
Do you need anything from us to help you on Monday?
No, I think if you want me to bring something to them, I will certainly mention that you folks have reviewed it. If there's something you feel that needs to be conveyed to them, I'm happy to do that. If you wanna stand by, I mean, that's your prerogative, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know how everyone else feels, but I would encourage you to, you know, basically emphasize what Nate said, and that, you know, that's a great first step in bringing a resource back to the benefit of the town, by doing so. So, you know, I think that's a positive, what they've done in reclaiming that by not renewing the lease. But before they fully decide what they wanna do exactly with that, you know, we're on the brink of developing a master plan that's gonna address all those other intricacies like the parking and everything else. So, yeah, that's the only message I would recommend.
Yeah, the
conveying.
master plan is really the key.
Yeah, and it's, you know, but again, that it's positive that they're moving in that direction, but before anything is done.
Yeah. mean, I think you're seeing piecemeal things coming down, right? Like, we got a year-end transfer for the parking lot, right? We have this decision, we have, like, there's attention being paid down there, which I think is a good thing, that it's not just we're cashing the checks
Yep.
from the leases that are coming in, putting that into the general fund, you know, we're seeing, interest and attention. We got the boat ramp, you folks have had the ability to speak with them,
Yeah.
so I think it's good momentum for you folks, you know.
Helping them understand what the public demand is there. You know, I think it's probably maybe vague, and maybe some of the council people know it exactly, but it might be vague. You know, to the extent you can be like, you know, things that people want are transient, ways to land and go to a restaurant or downtown. But potentially places to store dinghy so they can get out to their boats on town moorings. Like, you can start listing, and they're different. You know, they're different needs. It's not just removing what was there doesn't solve the public access problem down there. It removes dock space.
Right. Potentially, that's an area, not necessarily where the docks are, but if they're, and this is of course a pipe dream because it's gonna probably be a lot of money, but if the connectivity, which came out in that plan as well as something that people were looking for, if you're gonna connect, in my mind, again, I'm not an engineer, if you're gonna connect the north side of Route 1 to the south side of Route 1, going under an existing overpass along the river with some kind of river walk probably is the easiest, that makes the most sense, because your other option is tunneling under the highway. Because I don't think you could put a pedestrian bridge because it's a scenic highway. So I don't think that would even be an option. So, you know, again, to your point, right, it's not tied up now, so that you don't have to navigate that, but, you know, those people have lost their slips. What's the balance, you know? And also, if you remember, or maybe you don't, the revenue that the town was receiving wasn't even as much as one slip cost.
Right.
It was, you know, a few $1,000s. It was pretty minuscule. So, for the amount of revenue that the area was generating.
But they've settled the big lease, at least from our understanding. The lease for the rest of the marina for multiple years. Yeah. 30
Well, that happened in 2021,
Right.
and then Grove Point
Yeah.
was successful in having a transfer to that.
Yeah,
So
so
the
this is
council
not-
always has to approve.
This is not an ongoing negotiation on the larger. thing.
No. That business is what it is until such a point that Grove Point wants to
Out.
do whatever they want to do, right? Like, just like Ram Point sold to Grove Point could continue it for the next 25 years. They could sell it, they could walk away from it.
Yeah.
In that case, everything would revert back to the town,
Uh,
right? So like, you know, that they have that lease, that's that 30-year period. This is what its use is, and it can be operated in that manner. So it's only this section that was in that separate lease. So nothing's happening on Ram Point proper.
Any motions or discussion on that one? Number 7, Harbor Master's report.
As you would expect, it was a busy summer. I did limp through on PB1. It was interesting, to say the least.
Fast enough to kick a wake up? Or, you know,
What's that?
Fast enough to kick a wake up?
It moves fine, but if you move, then you run out of fuel very quickly. So I had sent you guys the first rendering. This actually just came through today on the new boat. This is the second rendering. It's pretty close. I think there's some minor modifications, but this is what it'll look like. If you're interested. Sorry, computer's not my thing. So they're cutting aluminum right now. It's been moved up from its initial delivery date. It looks like probably January it's going to be here. They're probably going to complete it at the end of December. Feel free to yell stop if you want to see something more. that's what the new boat's gonna look like.
It's good.
There's your dash layout. So we're moving in the right direction, which is good. Other than that, just busy, status quo. We had some, people docking at the boat ramp for the restaurant. Parking was a mess, and that's pretty much it.
Any discussion on the boat or other harbor master report items? No? We've got number 8, next meeting's Thursday, October 2nd. Any reason to move it? Anybody not know? Okay. That leaves us to number 9. Adjournment.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor?